B.J. Wodehouse, The Inimitable Jeeves, Chapter 6, The Hero's Reward. I don't know if you ever noticed, but nothing in this world ever seems to be absolutely perfect. The fact that Jeeves wouldn't be on the spot to watch me in action distressed me. The beauty of the plan was, you see, that nothing could possibly go wrong. Oswald and Bingo were on the spot all day long, so all I had to worry about was getting Honoria there in due time. And I managed that very easily by asking her if she would come for a stroll in the park with me, as I had something particular to say to her. She had arrived shortly after lunch in the car with a Braithwaite girl. I was introduced to the latter, a tall girl with blue eyes and fair hair. I liked her. She was so unlike Honoria, and I would rather talk to her for a bit, but business was business. I had fixed it up with Bingo to be behind the bushes at 3 o'clock, so I took Honoria through the park in the direction of the lake. "You're very quiet, Mr. Wusters," she said. Yes, I was concentrating. We had just come in sight of the lake, and I had looked around to see that everything was in order. Everything appeared to be as arranged. The kid Oswald was sitting on the bridge, and Bingo wasn't visible. Surely he had got into position. It was 2 minutes past 3. "Eh?" I said. "Oh, yes, I was just thinking. You said you had something important to say to me." "Absolutely." I decided to help young Bingo. I mean to say, without actually mentioning his name, I wanted to prepare the girl's mind for the fact that there was someone who had long loved her, and all that sort of things. It's like this. It may sound funny and all that, but there's somebody who's in love with you, and so forth, you know, a friend of mine. "Oh, a friend of yours? Yes." She gave a kind of a laugh. "Well, why doesn't he tell me so?" "Well, you see, that's the sort of a chap he is, very shy. He hasn't got the nerve. Looks on you as the sort of a goddess, you know. Worships the ground you tread on. This is very interesting. Yes, he's not a bad chap, you know. Rather an ass, perhaps, but kind enough. Well, that's the point. You might just bear it in mind, right?" "How funny you are." She chuckled back her head and laughed. She had a terrifying sort of laugh, rather like a train going into a tunnel. It didn't sound musical to me, and to the kid Oswald not a little as well. He gazed at us with dislike. "Listen, you're scaring all the fish away." Honoria changed the subject. "I wish Oswald wouldn't sit on a bridge like that. I'm sure it isn't safe. He might easily fall in." "I'll go and tell him," I said. I suppose the distance between the kid and me at the juncture was about 5 yards, but I got the impression that I was nearer 100. The more I walked, the farther away the kid seemed to get, till suddenly I found myself standing just behind him without quite knowing how I'd got there. "Hello," I said with a grin. The kid didn't bother to turn around and look at me. He merely wiggled his left ear in a rather peevish manner. I don't know when I've met anybody in whose life I appeared to mean so little. "Hello," I said. "Fishing, eh?" I laid my hand on his shoulder. "Hey, here, look out," said the kid. It was one of those things that want doing quickly or not at all. I shut my eyes and pushed. There was a scrambling sound, a yelp and a splash. I opened my eyes. The kid was just coming to the surface. "Help," I shouted, looking at the bush from which young Bingo was scheduled to emerge. Nothing happened. Young Bingo didn't emerge. "Help! Help!" I shouted again. Meanwhile, the kid Oswald was drowning, and I thought that some sort of steps ought to be taken about it. Of course I didn't like him, but it was not enough to let him die. I put off my coat and jumped into the water. The water seems wetter when you go into it with your clothes on than when you're just bathing. I was only under about 3 seconds, but I felt clammy and bloated. At this point the scenario changed. I had assumed that I should get hold of the kid and steer him courageously to shore. But he hadn't waited to be steered. I saw him about 10 yards away. He started to swim himself. By the time I had landed, the kid was halfway to the house. Look at it from whatever angle you like, my plan was ruined. I was interrupted in my meditations by a noise like the train going under a bridge. It was Gonorrhea Glossop laughing. She was standing at my elbow looking at me. "Oh, Bertie, you are so funny," she said. And even in that moment, there seemed to me something sinister in these words. She had never called me anything except Mr. Wooster before. "How wet you are!" "Yes, I am wet." "You had better hurry into the house and change your clothes." "Yes." I wrung a gallon or two of water out of my clothes. "You're so funny," she said again, first proposing in that extraordinary roundabout way, and then pushing poor little Oswald into the lake so as to impress me by saving him. I managed to correct this fearful impression. No, he said, "you pushed him in, and I saw you do it, and I'm not angry, Bertie. I think it was too funny of you, but I'm quite sure it is time that I took you in my hands. You certainly want someone to look after you. You've been seeing too many moving pictures. I suppose the next thing you would have done would have been to set the house on fire so as to rescue me. I think I shall be able to make something of you, Bertie. It is true, your life has been wasted up to the present, but you are still young, and there's a lot of good in you." No, really, there isn't." "Oh, yes, there is, and I shall help you. Now you run straight up to the house and change your wet clothes, or you will catch cold." And if you know what I mean, there was a sort of motherly note in her voice. As I was coming downstairs after changing, I saw young Bingo. "Bertie! Just the man I wanted to see. Bertie, a wonderful thing has happened." "You blighter!" I cried. "What became of you? Do you know?" "Oh, you mean about being in those bushes? I hadn't time to tell you about it. It's all off." "All off?" "Bertie, I was actually going to hide in those bushes when the most extraordinary thing happened. Walking across the lawn, I saw the most radiant, the most beautiful girl in this world. There is none like her, none." "Bertie, do you believe in love at first sight?" "You do believe in first sight, don't you, Bertie, old man?" "Directly I saw her, she seemed to draw me like a magnet. I seemed to forget everything. We two were alone in a world of music and sunshine. I joined her. I got into a conversation. She is Miss Daphne Braithwaite. Directly our eyes met, I realized that what I had imagined to be love for Honoria Glossop had been a more passing whim. Bertie, you do believe in love at first sight, don't you? She's wonderful, so sympathetic, like a tender goddess." At this point, I left the blighter. 2 days later, I got a letter from Jeeves. The weather, it ended. It's fine. I've had one exceedingly enjoyable bathe. I gave a rather hollow laugh and went downstairs to join Honoria. I had an appointment with her in the drawing room. She was going to read Ruskin to me.